Hey everybody, welcome back to Young Engineers of Today. I hope you're ready to continue. Well, I hope you had a good weekend, first of all, and I hope you're ready to continue with Over the Wire, because that's what we're going to do. Just so you guys know, we are actually going to be we're going to be doing class today and Wednesday and Monday, and Monday is going to be a week from today is going to be our last class. And it's going to be different material than what we've been going over. So we're going to be doing Over the Wire today and Wednesday, and then we will move on to just a one-off, you know, different material, final sort of thing for the Monday class, and then you guys will have the summer from us. But anyway, yeah. Um, so like I said, we're going to continue with Over the Wire, which is going to involve eh, a bit of new material compared to what you guys are used to or what you guys have been going over. So I'll spend some time talking about that kind of stuff, and then we'll go from there. But first, you guys should probably at least get the password to connect to the one we left off on. So I'll go ahead and do that. Place that into the chat box. Bam, send. So just because it's been long enough and I just want to go over it again, open up your terminal of choice. In this case, since I'm on a Windows computer, it's going to be PuTTY. If you're on a Mac or Linux, it's going to be just the regular terminal window. And you're going to want to connect to bandit.labs.overthewire.org. That is going to be your host name. So once that's done, I'll hit open. It'll ask us for a username. We're going to log in as bandit16 because that was as far as we'd gotten last time around. Then it's going to ask us for the password. I'll just go ahead and paste the password I copied into the chat box. And now we're on bandit16. We're in. And if we check the folder we're in, it ain't nothing. We got bandit15 password, bash logout, bash rc, profile, and SSL cert, snake oil key. Not exactly helpful or mind-blowing, especially because we're looking for the password for bandit17. So let's check out what the WarGames thing has to say for this level. So the credentials for the next level can be retrieved by submitting the password of the current level to a port on localhost in the range 3100 or 31,000 to 32,000. Find out which of these ports have a server listening on them in SSL and which don't. There is only one server that will give the next credentials. The others will simply send back whatever you send into it. Or find out which one of those. Speak SSL, excuse me. I have the thing in the way. Okay, so that's a lot to dissect right there. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. So the credentials for the next level, password for the next level, can be retrieved by submitting the password of the current level, or the password for bandit16, to a port on localhost in the range 31,000 to 32,000. Localhost is simply the computer that you're already connected to. So if you were to open an SSH connection to localhost on your own computer, well, it probably wouldn't work because your computer tends to not have ports open for connections through localhost. But you would be attempting to connect to your own computer through a network protocol, which is a bit wonky. But, it's doable. That's what we've been doing. Every time we complete a level, we'll SSH into the next one through the same windows. We are technically opening a network connection to ourselves every time we do that, because it's always to localhost. And that's just the network name for, 127.0.0.1. So localhost in the range 31,000 to 32,000. So ports, think of ports like Windows or doors or something like that. It's kind of like a window through which communication can travel. They're simply numbers which denote just network traffic. You that's how you can sort of keep track of all the different. Anyway, for instance, SSH tends to happen on port 22, SSH communication. HTTP communication can happen on port 80 or 8080. You know, there are a few different options. SMTP, I think, is like 1433 or something. Anyway, point being, ports are simply numbers which just sort of are kind of like lanes for traffic. So when we say it's on a port on localhost in the range 31,000 to 32,000, that means that the port that we're interested in is going to be numbered somewhere between 31,000 to 32,000. Find out which of these ports have a server listening on them and which speak SSL and which don't. So we're going to be looking for open ports then, because if a port didn't have a server listening on it, it would be closed, in essence. It may not necessarily be closed, it's just not listening to us, but we see it as closed anyway. So which one of these windows has somebody sitting on the other side waiting for input from us? Which speak SSL and which don't? That just means whichever one is actually looking for, is looking for the correct protocol that we're going to send back. SSL being a connection protocol, short for secure socket layer. It's basically just a secure way to send communications. So there's only one server that will give the next credentials. It's not there too. The others will simply send back to you whatever you send to it. So first things first, how do we know what ports are open? Well, I'll tell you, there's a command called Nmap. N as in Nancy, map as in a thing that you look at to find buried treasure. It's short for network map. So if we nmap localhost, so type nmap space and then localhost, all one word, and hit enter, we get this. Starting Nmap 6.40, 6.40, nmap.org at 2017-5.2 at 0010 UTC. This is in UTC, so it's a little bit further forward in time than we are right now currently. It thinks it's tomorrow. Hey, Mateo. So the Nmap scan report for localhost 127.0.0.1. The host is up. Here's the password for Bandit 16, by the way, Mateo. The host is up with just a tiny latency because we're trying to connect to ourselves. Not shown 990 closed ports, but as you can see here, port 22 TCP, service SSH, port 80 TCP, service HTTP, 113 identification, 443 HTTP secure, 1111 LM social server, 1840 Natopia, 3306 MySQL, 4321 who is 8000 alternate HTTP, 30,000 unknown. Now, here's a bit of a problem. Our port is on localhost in the range 31,000 to 32,000. This stops at 30,000, but not to fear. We can actually do this, -p, and then a space, 31,000, another dash, 32,000. So now we're telling it to look in the ranges between 31,000 to 32,000 of ports. So we'll hit enter, and now we're getting somewhere. We get a list of ports between 31,000 and 32,000. So we've got 31046, 31518, 31691, 31790, and 31960. Okay. Let's test them then. So I'm going to teach you about a trick. It's the echo command. Let's say I were to echo hello. Watch what happens when I type echo space hello and then hit enter. Boop. The terminal sends back hello to us. So basically we sent a command to the computer to basically just send that particular string or collection of letters back to us. Why is that a trick, you might ask? Remember how we were talking about pinging before? Latency and round trip time and all that good stuff. So pinging is nothing more than sending just some data to a computer and having them echo it back to us. So we can echo these ports, which is essentially our own sort of homebrew ping. So we can get some idea of which ones are listening and which ones speak SSL. Because here's the thing. Remember, if we go back to this, it says there is only one server which will give the next credentials. Again, that is a lie. There are two. But the others will simply send back to you whatever you send to it. So that sounds an awful lot like it's just going to mimic us if we try and send that. So we'll need to echo hello to these ports in order to figure out which one or ones speak SSL. Now, thinking back, what terminal character or command or whatever allows us to string together different instructions or different commands through the terminal? Does anybody remember? Maybe just its name or just the character, one or the other, because it was a specific character and had a specific name. All right, well, how about this? What's that called that I just typed in there? Just that vertical line. It's the pipe, right? No, sorry, that's not a one actually. That's a one looks like that. This is just simply a so like the little emoticon or smiley face that looks like this. It's the mouth on that. It's just a vertical line. Yeah, this is 16. Well, that's okay because I wasn't here on Wednesday either. Well, just start at 16, and we'll go from there. So no worries. And what do you mean, Mateo? I'm gonna echo again, just so I don't get disconnected. Again, what do you mean? Like I haven't done anything that you wouldn't be able to do right now. There haven't been any additional steps. I've just been walking through, you know, my thought process in order to get to this point so far for 16. I know, but the next command I enter in, you can just start typing as well, and you will be at the same point. There's been nothing at all. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yep. Okay, so we'll use the pipe to send. See, here's the thing. So we can use NC in order to do just basically like a small insecure connection to somewhere. So NC localhost 31046. Whoops. Notice how nothing happened there. All right. So let's try echoing test to 31046 and see how we get test back. Let's put a -v in front of it in order to give us more information. -v is usually a pretty safe option. It just means verbose, so it just talks to you more. gives you more debug information in the background. So echo test pipe nc-v localhost 31046. Enter. Look at that. Connection to localhost 31046, port TCP star succeeded. Test. So remember what I was saying about how there's only the ones that are not the correct port will be echoing back to us what we said to it. So let's try, instead of 046, let's try 518. Boop. Connection to localhost 31518, port TCP succeeded. Error. And then we get this error message. We know it's an error message because it says error right there. SSL routines, SSL3 get record, wrong version number, S3 packet C, blah, 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 blah. But hey, look at that, SSL. That looks pretty familiar, right? Find out which of these ports have a server listening on them and which speak SSL and which don't. There is only one server that will give the next credentials. The other will simply send back whatever you send to it. Don't worry about that second part. Both of them will actually send you. So instead of echoing test, let's do this. Echo, because now we have our port which speaks SSL. So now we're going to echo the password. We're going to send the password to it, and we're going to ask it what it thinks of that. But rather than doing an NC, let me expand this. So we're going to pipe this into SSL, wait, OpenSSL, S clients connect localhost 31518. So okay, what's happening here? So we've got our echo, except this time it's the password, and we're piping that into an S client connection to that port on localhost. So we're using SSL, the client, to connect to port 31518 on localhost. It's all stuff that more or less makes sense, right? So let's hit enter. Boop. Look at this. This is kind of cool, right? So we get this connected. And then det 0, blah, 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 some additional information about the nodes and everything. Certificate chain, server certificate, we get this begin certificate. We get all this information right here. That looks maybe like an RSA key or an SSL certificate, right? Ooh, interessant. So the thing they don't tell you, credentials can mean password. Credentials can also mean SSH key or RSA key. So this is an SSH key that we're going to use in order to connect to the next level. So what do we do with that? All right, well, let's go ahead and create a file that stores that information in it. So once again, I'm going to highlight it in order to ensure that I have this entire thing copied because I want to use this. I want to use this right here. So perfect. Done. So where can we create files again? Does anybody remember? It's okay if you don't, just seeing. That's the program. Yeah, you can use Nano as a program in order to create that stuff. But where on the server will it be? Does it need to be, rather? Does anybody remember the TMP directory? So let's go ahead. I'm going to use the mkdir, which is the short for make directory. I'm going to mkdir under TMP, and then we're just going to create one called myyeot. You call it something else because this one's mine. This is my folder. I made it. You can make whatever you want though. So I'm going to hit that, and we're going to get no response back, which means that we made it properly. Otherwise, it would have freaked out. So tmp myyeot. So now we're going to change directories over to it. We're sitting in the temporary, or the folder we created inside of the temporary folder, inside of the temporary directory. So what we need to do is we need to create a new SSH key that contains all this stuff that we highlighted. So yeah, you can use nano for it if you'd like. I'm going to use vim sshkey.private, but it has to be called sshkey.private. I mean, I guess it doesn't, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to call it sshkey.private. Hit enter. And I'm going to paste this stuff in and make sure that it begins properly. 2, 3, 4, 5, begin. Notice how it wasn't actually, there was some additional stuff missing from the beginning here. It just had end certificate and then the rest of it. Make sure it has 5 dashes and then begin. So I'm going to write that and save it. I'm going to save and quit. Done. Now we're sitting back on this screen. And if we check ls, look at that, we've got an sshkey.private. So now let's give it a try. Let's give it a whirl. SSH-I. The -I, remember, is to include an SSH key file. That was basically how we got into Bandit 16 from 15, if I remember correctly. But anyway, that's what we're going to use, sshkey.private and Bandit 17 at localhost. Enter. It's going to ask us if we want to continue. Unprotected private key file. Fine, be like that. That's okay, that's fixable. So the permissions for SSH key private are to open. So what we need to do is we need to set the permissions for that file so that really only we can access them. If we hit ls-l, sshkey.privates, we got a lot of permissions here. So we're going to change permissions on that file. So chmod 660 sshkey.private. So what exactly was this command right here? chmod 660 sshkey.private. Well, let's check chmod real quick. So change file mode bits. This manual page documents the new version of chmod. Basically, it sets permissions across the computer. And 660 in this case is just the default permissions, which if we were to check this again, as you can see, we've lost read permission for people who are not the owner group or root, which is the crucial thing. We wanted to make sure that people who were neither Bandit 16 nor the roots were going to be able to access this, even read it. And that's why this freaked out at us, because that was not the case. This little R right here messed everything up, because it meant that people who were not Bandit 16 or the root user, which is like the user who made this computer, had the ability to look inside of that file. Not just see that it was there and it existed, but actually look inside of that file. So that means it's unsafe, because even if they can't write to the file, if they're able to open it up and look at it, suddenly your SSH key is just wide open, because all they needed is a piece of paper and a pencil, and they can write down, and some patience, and they can write that down and then enter it in manually into another computer, and suddenly they have wide open access to whatever you're using the SSH key to connect to. So we changed permissions so that only Bandit 16 or the root user can actually look at that file. And this means that the computer is actually going to freak out at us a little bit less. So if we go back to our SSH command, so ssh-i.sshkey.private bandit17 at localhost, and hit enter, we'll say yes because we want to keep the certificate. Why are you unprotected? Why are you... hold on. I don't remember what base permissions were. Ah, 600, not 660. Pardon me. So we'll do the chmod again, but instead of 660, it'll be 600. I had the number messed up. All right, now let's double check the ls-l. Aha. There we go. Much more secure. I should have realized that from the outset. Anyway, that's just the owner, and then the second one is the owner group. Can you tell I use Linux systems all the time? Good Lord. All right, SSH one more time. This time it'll work. Really? We need a... Why is this requiring a passphrase? All right, you know what? So it... Level 17 doesn't want to cooperate with us. So using hacker magic, there's the password for level 18. So we're just going to connect straight from Bandit 16 to Bandit 18 at localhost because it's just going to be uncooperative like that. Whoops. But look at that. So that doesn't work, right? As soon as we try and log in as Bandit 18, we get kicked right back out to Bandit 16. And look at this little message right here. Bye-bye. Curiouser and curiouser. That's not a normal message. Well, I'll just go ahead and say it right now. Bandit 18 and 19. A password for the next level is stored in a file README in the home directory. Unfortunately, someone has modified bashrc to log you out when you log in with SSH. So what's happening right now is a bash script is kicking us out as soon as we log in on Bandit 18. As soon as we log in. So we need to find some way around that. So what we're going to do is we are going to run SSH in a slightly modified mode so that we basically aren't affected by the bashrc script. And it goes a little something like this. SSH-T bandit 18 at localhost and then /bin//sh. The SSH key, you mean? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's like a barcode. So as you can see, when that happened, things got a little weird. So I typed SSH-T bandit 18 at localhost /bin/sh. Yeah. Yeah, basically. The -T is short for TTY mode, which is going to be slightly different from regular bash mode. See, I can't hit the up arrow. I can't do tab complete. I can't do any of that stuff. However, I can still enter in shell commands and get results. So ls-a will list everything. ls-l will list permissions on everything. ls-la will actually list permissions on everything. But regardless, look at that, Bandit 19 made a dumb shell script to kick us out. Bandit 19's mean. They don't want the password. But we can still use terminal commands, bash commands, shell commands, whatever you want to call them. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's cat readme. And remember, you can't do tab completion, so you have to type out readme in full. And we get the password for Bandit 19. IUEKS, S7UBH, AG3, blah, blah, blah. And that's it. Now, we can actually piggyback straight into Bandit 19. Back into regular shell mode. Hooray! Yay! So now we get all nice things like tab completion and previous commands and things like that. So let's see what we got here. ls, we've got this one red thing, bandit 20 do. What? What is that? Well, to gain access to the next level, you should use the setuid binary in the home directory. Execute it without arguments to find out how to use it. The password for this level can be found in the usual place, etc. bandit pass, using the binary. Okay, interesting. So let's see what bandit 20 do is. Run a command as another user. Example, bandit 20 do ID. In this case, ID is the command that we want to run. The whole conceit of this little executable is it will execute whatever command we feed into it as if we were bandit 20, which is crucial because if we were to look in bandit passwords, as you can see, all the bandit passwords are listed here. If we try and cat bandit 20, permission denied. As you might imagine, we need to be bandit 20 in order to even read that. Okay. So bandit 20 do allows you to run a command as another user, but we need to input the command afterwards. So let's go ahead and give it a spin. So we got bandit 20 do cat, etc. bandit pass, bandit 20. So now we're pretending that we're bandit 20 in order to be able to read bandit 20. Let's hit it. Hey, just like that, we read it. And there's our password, so we can SSH into bandit 20. So now things are getting a little trickier, right? Now we needed to pretend that we were another user in order to be able to access the password. Granted, they provided the means for us to be able to do it, but regardless, we need to pretend that we were somebody else. Guess what that means? It's time to be bandit 20. And that's exactly what we've become. There is a setuid binary in the home directory that does the following. It makes a connection to localhost on the port you specify as a command line argument. It then reads a line of text from the connection and compares it to the password in the previous level. If the password is correct, it will transmit the password for the next level. All right, so ls, true to form, they have a suconnect, super user connect. Let's try and run super user connect. This programming will connect you to the given port on a local host on localhost using TCP. If it receives the correct password from the other side, the next password is transmitted back. Usage.su or ./su connect port number. So let's try port 22 since that's SSH, right? So enter. Read SSH to open SSH, blah, 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 Ubuntu. Error, this doesn't match the current password. So this one took me a second. In fact, longer than I really care to admit. But here's the deal. What it's doing is it's pulling the port that it is connecting to and asking that port for the password. That is to say, Bandit 20's password. So what we need to do is we need to set up a listener on localhost with a whatever port we want. All it's doing is just sitting there and it knows what the password is. And we feed it the password so it knows what the password is. Then we use suconnect to the port that we set up. It will feed the password to that, or it'll ask it to echo back that password. If it sends the password to suconnect goes, okay, everything's cool, and gives us, that's my sister. Okay, good. It gives us the password for the next level. So, all right, let's give it a try. There's a lot, right? Like there was a lot going on there, but that's okay. Because what we're going to do is we're just going to, walk you right on through this so it all makes sense. All right. So let me just go ahead and make sure I have the password already and everything like that. I do. So here's what we're going to do. NC-L. Actually, let's just check the man page for NC real quick. So check it out. Used to specify that NC should listen for an incoming connection rather than initiate a connection to a remote host. It is an error to use this option in conjunction with PS or Z, blah, 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 blah. So what that's doing is it's setting up a listener, which is exactly what we're looking for. Hey, show of hands, how many of you have played any roguelikes like NetHack or Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup or Brogue or anything like that? Nobody? Well, it makes me a little sad. I highly recommend them if you like, tough as nails games. Anyway, that, randomness will just totally mess you up. Anyway, the whole idea is, NC-L, we're setting up a listener, right? We're going to set it up on whatever port we want. And it's 2017, so let's just make it port 2017. So a lot of these games are text-based as well, right? Or they can have tiles and stuff like that. But if you play the text-based version, you'll fight demons and such. And there's this sort of visual pun. So as you can see right here, to beat this level, you need to log in twice. Once to run the set UID command and once to start a network daemon to which the set UID will connect. A network daemon, right? The shortcut for a network daemon is the ampersand. And so the pun in these games is, since they're all represented with characters and stuff like that, if you ran into an ampersand, you knew it was a demon that you had to fight because R. Anyway, so NC-L 2017 ampersand. and that just means daemon. So first, though, we need to echo our password for that level into it. So we're going to pipe that into our listener. So we're piping the password for Bandit20 into our listener. Watch what happens when I hit enter. I get that. What does that mean? 1 and then 18695. Well, okay. This is a process number. A process number basically is a number denoting, so, you know, you run a bunch of programs on your computer, right? And then you open up the task manager to see what's running. The process number is kind of like the terminal version of that. As you can see right here, 18695 is what got fed back to us, right? For this whole thing. And this is an NC process. Well, as you can see here, there's a 18695, and as you can see, it's an NC process. So it's letting us know that the computer is currently running that command. It's currently got a process sitting in the background, waiting for input on that network port. So let's go ahead and give it a try. SU Connect 2017, because that's the port that we set up, right? Read GBKK EFF blah blah blah. Password matches. Sending next password GE269G2H3MW3PWGRJ blah blah blah, so on and so forth. Guess what? That right there, my friends, is the password to Bandit21. Boom. Let's do it. We're in Bandit21. What do we got here? Nothing. Really nothing? Really nothing. Okay. Well, let's see what we got going on. A program is running automatically at regular intervals from cron, the time-based job scheduler. Look in etc/cron-d for the configuration to see what command is being executed. So crons, if you ever think of like cron jobs or anything like that, or you ever hear about those when you're in reference to Linux machines, they are, they are time-based job schedulers. You can set up jobs on your Linux machine through the terminal to have it do things at specific periods of time. You can say, oh, you know, every month on this particular day or whatever, back everything up to here, or every week or every day or every hour, do a thing. I had a cron job on a Raspberry Pi because the power kept getting knocked out at my old place. That as soon as it received power, it would send an email to myself. So if my power ever got knocked out at my place, I could plug in my Raspberry Pi to the wall. It wouldn't be getting power, but as soon as the electric company, and the thing was, it was just this random string of just terrible luck. Like they needed to work on the power, you know, for this, so they knocked out the power for 3 hours. Then a storm wiped out the power for 4 hours. Then somebody crashed into a power pole, and that knocked out the power for like 2 hours. So I just had the worst luck with power in that place. But anyway, point being, I could plug it in to the wall. As soon as power was restored to my place, power was restored to the Raspberry Pi. Raspberry Pi turned on and sent an email to myself when I was out at a coffee shop or whatever, because I didn't want to be sitting in a dark apartment like some sort of loser. Letting me know that I had internet again, or well, and by extension, power. And so I could go back home. So cron jobs can do things like that. That's just sort of a simpler sort of answer to that kind of thing. But yeah. So there you go. So look at etc. cron d for the configuration and see what command is being executed. So let's see what kind of cron jobs we're looking at. ls etc cron.d. What do we got? Behemoth 4 cleanup cron apt cron job bandit 22, cron job bandit 23, cron job bandit 24, cron job bandit 24 root, and then a bunch of other stuff. We're probably interested in Bandit 22, though. That probably is the most likely culprit, since that's our next target, right? That's where we're going next. So why don't we check that out? Okay, let's cat it. Cat cron.d, cron job, oops, cron job, good lord, bandit22. So bandit22, user bin cron job bandit22 shell fed into dev null. Okay. So we have another clue. So this is the cron job, which is basically the scheduler, and it's telling the computer where to find the actual script. So we're hot on the trail here. Now let's actually check out the script that's supposed to be run every time the cron job is called. Let's cat that. All right, chmod 644 tmp. So, hey, look at that. We can't really cat that, can we? File tmp, oops, tmp t706 LDS 9S0R QQH9AM CZ. I don't think we even have permission to look in there. So that, I believe, is the next password right there. Boom. Let's go ahead and copy it, paste it into the question box, or excuse me, the chat box. Now let's do it. SSH bandit22 at localhost. Yes, password. Unfortunately, that was not the password. Hold on, let's just double check it. So I may have copied it incorrectly. Yep, definitely not the password. All right, so let's Control C out of here. So let's see if we can't cat tmp t706. You know what? Rather than just wasting our time with this, let's just paste it. Boom. There's the password. There's your password right there. Perfect. So SSH bandit22 at localhost. Yes. Yes. Feed it in. Now we're in bandit22. What's in bandit22? The program is running it automatically at regular intervals from cron. Seems familiar. And see what command is being executed. Looking at shell scripts written by other people is a very useful skill. The script for this level is intentionally made easy to read. If you're having problems understanding what it does, try executing it to see the debug information it prints. All right, well, let's see if we can't check it out real quick before we run out of time. So we'll just go ahead and skip the whole cron.d/cron job bandit23. What do we got here? It's going to user bin cron job bandit23. All right, so cat user. We're doing literally the same thing we did for bandit21. Job bandit23.sh. All right. My name, who am I? My target, echo who I am. User, my name, MD5 sun, some. Copying password file. Bandit pass my name to temporary my target. So my target is echo I am user to an MD5 sum. Let's see the manual for MD5 sum. Okay, so it's just a checksum. So we're going to cut out, all right. So watch this. Now I'm going to run that. So if we go echo I am user bandit23, so you see right here what we've done is it says copying password file, blah, blah, I am, password bandit2 to this whole long file name, right? But what it's doing is it's taking the words I am user, username, feeding them through a checksum, and then taking some extraneous information out, some extraneous characters and stuff out, in order to create a file that contains the next password. This, for Bandit22, this is the output for that. So we need to know how to get the output for Bandit23. Thankfully, reading over the shell script, as you can see right here, we see exactly how we do that. So instead of, in my name, having it be Bandit22, we'll feed Bandit23 in there. So Bandit23 md5 sum cut -d -f, whoops, -f1. So what we're doing is we're actually just sort of running that command manually with Bandit23 in place of Bandit22 in order to get the file name that we're looking for. We hit that, and we get that whole long thing, 8CA319, blah, 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 blah. So we'll copy that, and let's just go ahead and cat TMP and paste that in there. And look at that, password for Bandit23. Pretty clever, right? So let's SSH into Bandit23. Localhost. Yes. Enter, and look, we're in Bandit23. The program is automatically running at regular intervals from Cron, the time-based job scheduler. Looking at etc cron d for the configuration and see what command is being executed. Note, this level requires you to create your own first shell scripts. This is a very big step, and you should be proud of yourself when you beat this level. Now, keep in mind that your shell script is removed once executed, so you may want to keep a copy around. But hey, look at that. Bandit23 involves creating your own shell script. So let's take a look. Let's take a look and see. We'll take a look in a book. First off, let's see what's in cron. Okay, so we'll cat cron d cron job bandit24. And we'll also root. All right, so we'll cat user bin cron job bandit24.sh. Interesting. Okay, so how come we can't, oh, because I don't know how to type. Get rid of the E in user. Permission denied. Ah! Executing and deleting all scripts and var spool my name. For I in the particular directory, do if I blah, 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 then echo handling I, timeout, rm-f, if, and then done. We can take a look at that on Wednesday. But for now, that's going to do it for today. Let's go ahead and copy that password. And we'll slot it into the other passwords we have, bandit23, paste. But that's going to do it for today. So we'll call it a day here. If you have any questions, I'm here. Otherwise, you're more than welcome to head out. Have a wonderful couple of days, and we'll see you on Wednesday.